Hello and welcome to MYPATH's first podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We have got special guest Daniel James. Thank you, Daniel, for coming to see us today.
Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate your time. Daniel, you've got the honour, the privilege of being our first guest. Thank you for coming on.
No pressure at all then.
None at all. We can go with the flow. Just to give you a bit of a heads up, we can be quite flexible today in terms of what we talk about, but me and Jamie have spoken about our vision in terms of trying to support careers development practitioners with understanding how people's career paths can be non-linear. An example being yourself.
Yep.
But also we're keen to kind of help our students understand the ideas around A to B and how it can be quite disjointed at times. And we hope that you can support with that based on your background and your journey.
Yep, absolutely.
So if it's okay with you, Daniel, I've got a few questions today and we'll take it from there.
Yep, let's go.
Okay, so if you don't mind, Daniel, if you could just introduce yourself, talk to us a little bit about who you are, your background in terms of your upbringing, your childhood, but also, where you've got to at this stage now.
Yep, so my name's Daniel James. I'm a mindset and high performance coach, and my path, as you sort of mentioned, was very sort of out there. What I'm doing now, never in a million years when I was in secondary school would I think that I'll be where I'm at. So I grew up in South Nottingham, so nice area, not a problem with that. But in secondary school, I had very, very bad skin, really bad acne, and that then led to me getting quite badly bullied. On top of that, I was also dyslexic. So for those people who don't know what dyslexia is, I can read, I'm just not very good at reading. So for me, school wasn't a good time, and I hated being there. I'd be that student and make excuses and have sick days and all sorts. But my only saving grace was that I was a really good goalkeeper. So I played football at a high level. I played for some of the top teams in Nottinghamshire, and because of that, I didn't get too badly bullied. Like, there's a lot of people who had it a lot worse than me. For me, it was just those small little comments that sort of stuck with me throughout my...
Football was seen as fashionable.
That's it, exactly. Yeah. And because I was a goalkeeper as well, I'd be the kid that'd be bailing. I'd be bailing these popular kids out for the football team. So they were okay with me. But I liked Warhammer, rock music, Aston Villa, skateboarding, all these sorts of things. So I'd be that kid at break time that didn't really know where he fit in. I felt very, very lost. Wasn't sure where my place was. And actually, if I look back now, school was where I kind of noticed my depressive tendencies kicking in. So for those of you who don't know what that means, I basically just felt numb. Okay. Wasn't happy, wasn't sad, I just kind of existed. And it wasn't the typical teenage hormones. It was, I just didn't feel anything, like special events.
At a very young age.
Very young age. So I remember playing squash against my best friend, and his dad was like a pro squash player. And he was destroying me, as he would, because his dad was coaching him. And the way that I was talking to myself was horrific. Like really abusive, nasty, horrible things. And I had no idea what that was. So I just kind of pushed it down and put it into a box. So then sort of fast forward as I went through my teenage years, I moved to America, went to university. So I was on a football scholarship there. So for people looking at career pathways, that could be an option available to them if they're scholarships or anything like that. And then came back to the UK and got into personal training. So I worked at some top personal training companies in the country, did the whole sort of bodybuilding thing and all that sort of stuff. And my business was booming. So I had a very, very large group of clients, transformations. So on paper, my life looked great because you'd be seeing me on social media and have all these amazing results with clients. My business was booming. But the reality of it was that I was a functioning depressant.
Okay.
So what happened was, from secondary school till the age of about 25, 26, my mental health had just slowly been declining, and I had no idea what happened. And it was due to a breakup with a girl that, like the straw that broke the camel's back, and I went to a very dark place. So I was a functioning depressant, meaning I was very heavily depressed, and every single day I'd have to get up, put a mask on, pretend I was okay, be this happy leader for my clients, and I'd go home, take the mask off, and just cry in bed.
So almost lived a double life.
That's literally it, was a double life, and no one knew, and I felt very, very lost. And because I felt so lost, I was pushing people away. So not only was I feeling lost, I was also very isolated. So for me, it wasn't a good time when my mid to late 20s, when all my other mates were really pushing on with their careers. Well, so I thought when you see it on social media. The reality was that I was just living this lie. So I then lost everything. I lost my job. I was self-employed.
Due to mental health, you lost your job?
Well, I was self-employed. So when I say I lost my job, I lost all my clients. So without clients, I had no job. And because of that, I got into thousands of pounds worth of debt. I had to lose my house. I had to get rid of my house because I couldn't afford it. And then at 28, I had to move back home with my parents. So this guy that on social media was living his best life, actually, the reality was very, very different.
In terms, if you don't mind,
Yep.
really deep, and thank you for being so honest with us. If we just go back a couple of steps,
Yep.
could you talk to us a little bit about the journey from school to America, and
Yes.
then after that, if we could fast forward to, I suppose, the next phase of your life once you overcame these mental health issues?
Absolutely,
Is that what
yeah,
you call
yeah,
them?
absolutely, yeah.
So could you talk to us about the educational phase from school to America? Because I know that will interest a lot of students.
Absolutely, yeah. So I had no interest in going to America. I didn't know anything about it. So I did my GCSEs at school. Didn't get the best grades.
What does that mean? Didn't get the best grades?
So I don't know the equivalent in numbers, but I got 4 Bs, 5 Cs, and 2 Ds. And the Bs that I got were in like religious studies and history, so they weren't in the big ones. My Cs were in like English and math, so it wasn't academic. But then I ended up going on to college, doing my A levels.
Okay.
At the time, it wasn't compulsory to go into further education. I chose to do it because that's kind of what you're told to do. Like you go to school, you go to college.
It's interesting that you've just said that, what you was told to do.
Yep.
Okay, so were you told by someone that you should go on to do your A levels?
My parents, really. So again, I wasn't academic, but they were like, well, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, you're not really like into like bricklaying or doing any of like the trades or anything. So you just go to school because that's what they did.
Yeah.
So they kind of went to school, went to college.
And were you passionate about the A levels you selected?
Absolutely not. So I tried to pick the easy ones. So I did media. I did business because I thought that business would be interesting.
Yeah.
I did IT and I did psychology.
Right. Okay.
Failed psychology in the first year. Failed IT in the first year. So I only ended up with 2 A levels, and they were in media and business studies.
And interesting that you say you failed psychology, because I know a lot of your work is around
Absolutely.
mindset now.
Because again, the way that it was portrayed to me, and this is the thing when it comes to education, I think the way that it's pushed onto students isn't really relevant to them. It's very old school.
Yeah.
And you've got, especially nowadays, people's attention spans is very short-lived. And I feel like with my dyslexia, I had part of that as well.
Yeah.
So even to this day, bear in mind I'm dyslexic, I love reading. But I have to be passionate about the book I'm reading.
Yeah.
If you said, hey, Dan, here's my favourite book, read it. If I look at it and read the first page and I'm not interested, I will not read that book.
Yeah.
I cannot, my brain just does not work that way. So when it comes to psychology, I wanted to know about how the mind worked when actually I was learning about people.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's almost like a history
so
thing.
You weren't linking.
I wasn't linking. I couldn't see the bigger picture. I wasn't sold on, hey, we've got to do this in order to build up and get this. I was just told about this is the module. I couldn't connect the dots.
Interestingly, and I know you dip in and out of the careers world, and I know you work in a lot of schools. Obviously, there is a lot of emphasis now on linking curriculum to careers.
Yes.
So I would imagine that you were perhaps victim of that not being embedded into schools at the time when you were at school, which I'm guessing was around the same time as myself.
Absolutely. And again, so when I was going into college, I had no idea of what career I was potentially even getting into. No. I was just going to college for the sake of going to college.
Yeah.
And the only reason I went to the college I went to was because the football team was one of the best in the East Midlands.
And that was your passion.
And that was it. So from an actual college point of view, there was a lot better colleges in Nottingham for academics, but I wasn't interested in that. What I was interested in was playing football.
Yeah. And then I'm guessing that's how it then snowballed into scholarships. And how did that work and how did they work? Because actually, I'm going to be honest, I don't know much about a scholarship. So talk us through that process. Were you selected? Did you have to apply for it? How did that come about?
And it's one of the best questions, but the biggest questions I get actually when I go into schools and people are sporting, they'll come and ask me afterwards, especially when I'm talking colleges. So I had no interest in staying on after I'd done my 2 years of A-level. However, everyone in the football team said, hey, if we go and do this personal training course, we get to stay for another year playing football. So then signed up to a personal trainer. I had no interest, I didn't know what a personal trainer was. No. But I was from play football.
Yeah.
Got halfway through the season and one of the goalkeepers from the year before had gone to America.
Right.
He came back for Christmas and said, you need to get over to America, it's amazing. So I then basically had 3 or 4 months to kind of get it turned around.
Yeah.
So the way that it worked was you essentially, this works for anything, whether it comes to sports or musical instruments or whatever it is, you can get scholarships for anything, even academics. You have to prove that you can do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
So I had to get a show reel of me playing football.
Okay.
So my dad came to 3 or 4 games, had to pull in a lot of favours because it was at the time in Nottingham there was loads of floods. So games were being called off.
Yeah.
So I got this like 10-minute reel. I think it's actually still on YouTube somewhere. It's awful. And then what I did was I then went out and applied to universities because I paid a company to do it for me, but they'd basically taken my money and done nothing. So I've basically been scammed. Okay. So my advice with this is there's 2 options to go to America. You pay a company, make sure you do your due diligence.
Yeah.
I did not do that. Or do it yourself. If you can do it yourself, that's harder, but it's also cheaper. Because again, some of the students I work with very, very poor backgrounds, they can't afford to be paying a company.
Yeah.
So you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
All you need is your phone, record it, edit it yourself,
Yeah.
and then send it out to universities.
And is that still how it works now?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Because for me, you're going directly to the universities and saying, hey, this is me, because then the university also doesn't have to pay any sort of fees, like finder's fee.
Yeah.
So the university, all they care about is getting the good players.
Yeah.
And then what you've got to do, which I also didn't realise, is you have to take a test called the SATs.
Right.
And the way that works is, I'm going to get a bit confused here, but you start with a point score, and for every incorrect answer, you lose a point. For every correct answer, you gain a point.
Okay.
And basically, you get a point average at the end, which then equals a grade. And you need to get a certain grade to get over to America.
Right.
English was on there, maths was on there. So again,
you
not like,
panicked.
yes, so you can study for them, but I
Yeah.
do recommend you do study because I
Yeah.
failed the first time.
Right. Okay.
So me and 3 of my other mates that were going to America,
Yeah.
went to Manchester, got on the beer, hung over, took the exam, failed it.
Right.
So the second time around, my dad drove me by myself to
Yeah.
Durham in the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
to take this test, and then I passed it.
Right.
So my advice is, people do want to go down that route, take it seriously,
Yeah.
because it's going to be a lot of work to get there, and you don't want to fail just because you haven't practiced for these exams.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well that you mentioned kind of you stayed on at college because you liked the idea of playing for the football team.
Yep.
And I think that's quite significant, isn't it? That a lot of children have a passion, or a lot of people have a passion for becoming elite athletes. And we know that statistically that's really, really difficult. But actually, there are so many jobs in and around these areas that can potentially come to light if you do kind of pursue your hobbies as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and I suppose that was kind of how you fell into the scholarship, because you've kind of come across it by staying on in college due to your
Playing football.
interest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it. So people will knock it, but actually it got me to where I was. Yeah.
And then you went over to America. Whereabouts in America did you go?
So I was in Iowa, so nowhere glamorous.
Okay.
So I was on the border between Iowa and Illinois. So the closest big city was Chicago.
Yeah.
So again, it was an amazing experience. But again, my mental health wasn't great when I was there.
Okay.
So I look back now,
Yeah.
and I really didn't make the most of my time when
Right,
I was
okay.
there.
But it still shaped you to this day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yes, you're there to study, yes, to play football, but actually the experiences that you take away, it shapes your decision making.
Absolutely. So even the first year that I was in America, I nearly got kicked out of the university because my grades were so bad.
Okay.
Because I was there,
Focused on football.
focused on football,
Yeah.
drinking, even though
Yeah.
you're technically underage over there. But
Yeah.
again, partying, living that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because remember, I wasn't academic, so I did not care about the studies.
Yeah.
But I was a student athlete.
Yeah.
Student comes first, and I forgot about that. So I was just living the
He was
athlete
an
part.
athlete.
Yes, exactly. So I basically said, listen, if you
Yeah.
don't get these grades up,
Yeah.
then we'll kick you out of the university,
Yeah.
and you lose your scholarship.
Yeah.
So then I was like, right, this can't happen, because my parents did a lot to get me over there.
Yeah.
So then I ended up basically knuckling down and studying, and ended
Yeah.
up getting on the dean's list, which is basically one of the top percentage of students at
Okay.
the university. So
Wow.
I actually really turned it around.
Yeah. All while suffering with mental health.
Yes, but again, I didn't realise.
At the
This
time.
thing at the time. This when I look back, I had no idea. I just for examples, like a lot of times the weekends, I know the students would go to big parties like in other cities. I just stay in my
Yeah.
dorm room, like play computer games.
Yeah.
But it wasn't playing computer games because I love playing computer games, even though I did.
Yeah.
It was 'cause I just felt really like just not settled. I couldn't explain it. I just thought it was a bit weird. I wasn't. I was just struggling with my own
Yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah.
which no one told me was a thing.
And we'll get on to your thoughts
Yeah.
in a moment, because I appreciate a lot of the work you do now is around mindset, and I'm sure our viewers will be really, really interested in that. And I've had the luxury of observing some of your seminars, which have been great. Did you complete your qualification there?
Yes.
What
Yeah.
did you get? So what was the degree in?
Business degree.
Okay.
And I have not used a single thing from a business degree in my business.
So even though you're playing football on a
Yep.
scholarship, you don't have to study, say, sports science or physiotherapy. It can be completely separate.
Anything. You can do anything you
Oh,
want
wow.
to. So
So I didn't know that.
yeah, so in America you can literally go and study whatever you want to do.
Okay.
And again, the American system is very different to the UK
Yeah.
university system. So for example, when you go over there, you have to pass out of maths and English, meaning you have to be at a certain level of maths
Yeah.
and English.
Yeah.
I obviously wasn't, because I hadn't done maths since I'd
Right.
left secondary school.
Yeah.
So now you're talking 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
So every single semester, like every term, I had to take the same maths class
Really?
until I passed it. And it got to the last term. If I didn't pass this math class, I couldn't graduate.
And that's interesting, I suppose, because it is very different in that sense over here. But actually, it does resonate, because your universities, when they check entry requirements here,
Yep.
even though you've got your A levels or A level equivalents, they'll still go back to making sure you've got the
Yep.
basics in.
And it's what I say to
English and maths.
students. It's
Yeah.
like, so one of my best friends, she only figured out what she wanted to do with life when she was 32. involved her going to university because her GCSEs were so bad. She had to
Yeah.
go back and do her
Yeah.
GCSEs.
Yeah.
So what I always say to students is, especially
Yeah.
when I'm working with the
Get
disengaged
it done
students,
now.
it's like, hey, like you think that you're sticking it to the school, you
Yeah.
think you're sticking it to the teachers. You're not. What you're
Yeah.
doing is you're hurting yourself
Yeah.
further down the line, and you don't realise.
Yeah.
I
And
say,
then you're gonna have to go and repeat
exactly?
it.
Do you really
where
want
you've
to do
got
this?
responsibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
just knuckle down now. You don't have to get the A's or the
Yeah.
top marks, but just get
Yeah.
enough that you don't have to resit these things.
Yeah.
Just really focus for those 6 months beforehand, because otherwise you'll shoot yourself in the foot later on.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your graduation.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So when you came back, personal training.
Yes.
I think you mentioned as well that you was pretty comfortable in front of the camera. You went into
Yes.
some modelling as well.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about that. How did that come about?
So the modelling came because I got into bodybuilding. So
Okay.
did the bodybuilding, and
Was that as in going on stage, performing?
yeah, stepping on
Yeah.
stage, doing the whole thing where you tanned up, doing all
Yeah.
the posing, and then because of that, I then fell into the modelling.
Yeah.
So again, the modelling side of stuff, I was in some big magazines, big publications. So once again, stick that onto my social media. The life I was living,
And
very
that
glamorous.
also came from a hobby again,
Once
didn't
again,
it?
yep,
You know, and not linked to business again.
nope,
But you've actually, through your hobbies, you've generated job opportunities.
yes. But then let's tie into that as well, because this is also something I don't mention. I don't think I've ever spoke about it in a school. Is that when I was doing the modelling, I started off doing it for free. So someone got me and said, "Hey, this was really good, brilliant," and they said, "Right, to work with our agency, you need more photos." So I then ended up working for free to get some photos for these portfolios. I maybe did 15, 20 free photo shoots, and because I'd worked with these photographers, proved I was reliable, proved that my pictures were good. When they then got paid gigs, they would then get me into these paid gigs, and some of my biggest gigs came from the photographers I'd worked with for free. So a lot of people, when they go leave school, they think that they've earned the right to earn the big bucks, when actually what you need to do is you need to earn your stripes.
Yeah.
You need to actually prove that you can get the result you'll say you're going to do.
And this is really, really interesting because obviously I'm thinking with my careers guidance hat on now, you know, you're talking about, you know, opportunities coming through hobbies, skills, reliability, timekeeping, and actually from that you're building this portfolio alongside your academic qualifications. You're building a portfolio that's actually generating opportunities.
That's it. And that's really good. Generate your own opportunities.
Yeah.
And there's a big saying, it's not who you know, it's not what
Yeah.
you know, it's who you know. And I've never really bought into that.
No.
But the older I've got,
Yeah.
the amount of opportunities that I've got just by being a good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having
absolutely.
conversations. Even this right now,
Yeah.
it came off the back of me and you having a good conversation.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
there to do a job.
Yeah.
Me and you got
I
on.
like what you did.
That was it.
Remember,
But again, the whole thing is I wasn't just seeing you as a cog. I was like, no,
Yeah.
actually, you're a person. Let's have a good interaction.
Yeah,
Can I
yeah.
add some value? And that's what people don't seem to realise
Yeah.
is they're looking at the short term.
Yeah.
What can I get here?
Yeah.
Rather than actually, can you go above and beyond here, over deliver here?
Yeah.
So then actually in the long run, that person
Yeah.
remembers, wow, actually, when I saw Dan, like he was brilliant. Like he was
Yeah.
on time. He was really punctual. We had a great conversation.
Yeah.
And actually, we asked him to do this, but he did all this extra stuff
Yeah.
on top of that.
Yeah.
That then builds a really good rapport,
Yeah.
and there's something called the law of reciprocity,
Okay.
meaning that if you give someone something,
Yeah.
they then feel indebted to you. That's why if you go to places, they'll give you like 3 bottles of water,
Yeah.
because then you feel indebted to them
Yeah.
to buy something or whatever it is.
Now you
It's
told me you weren't going to use any long words.
there you
today.
go. That's it.
You did,
Reciprocity.
yeah, yeah.
Don't ask me to spell it, but it just means that basically, if you do something for someone, they feel indebted to you, feeling like
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
owe you something.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I didn't realise that at the time. I was
Yeah.
just going there being like, well, I'm here to do this.
Yeah.
My mum always said, if you're going to do something, do it properly.
Yeah.
So I just go and over deliver.
I think you've cleverly transitioned into the mental health and mindset talk there. So if you don't mind, would you mind talking to me a little bit about perhaps how someone could go from beginning to realise they have mental health issues, and how do you then end up on stage modelling? Because I would personally think, and I'm sure some of our viewers would think, that standing on stage requires loads and loads of confidence, someone that's in the zone. But you were saying to me you were suffering with mental health. So how does that work? And is that kind of how mental health hides itself sometimes? It masks itself. Talk me through it.
So when I was in the personal training business, again, I had no desire to step on stage and completely out of my comfort zone. But I wanted to fit in. So everyone within the gym I was at
They were
were
doing it.
doing it. So I was
Right.
like, right, this is how I fit in.
Yeah.
And I had such cripplingly low self-worth
Yeah.
that I just went along with the crowd. I didn't think, is this good for me? Is this right for me? Is this going to help me? I just kind of went along with it. And from a trying to think of the correct terminology here, from a egotistical point of view,
Yeah.
I was enjoying
Yeah.
how my body was looking.
Yeah.
Because again, I hated myself, but physically I was looking different, so I was getting loads of attention. So although I didn't necessarily want the attention, I kind of did, But because internally I didn't like myself, whenever people was giving me compliments, that was where the friction would come. Because deep down I really wanted people to like me. But because I didn't like myself, I couldn't accept when people did start to get close to me. So there'd be this massive internal conflict. And that's what it was. And I think a lot of people that struggle with mental health, they've got the conflict because they kind of want to get out of this dark place. They want to get out of this struggle. They want to be more adventurous. But when they try and step into that, it's like, I don't know what to do here. And that was a conflict that kind of almost spurred me on in a weird way because I wasn't aware of it. And because I didn't know what to do about it, I just went with the crowd.
Yeah.
Also, kind of look this way, I've got to step on stage. Oh, I don't really want to do this. Okay. And when it came to modelling, for me, it allowed me to hide behind a camera. So if you ever look at any of my modelling photos, they always said to me, oh, you've got this great look. The look was me being very, very depressed and looking blankly into a camera. There was nothing behind my eyes. No. The look, wasn't...
But they couldn't
see that. But for me, I could just turn my mind off because when I was doing the modelling, I didn't have to think.
No.
I'd go there and someone say, right, do this, do that. Okay. Didn't have to think.
So was the danger often when you did have time to think?
That'd be where the issue occurred. So prime example of this. So again, talking now, this is 7-8 years ago this whole thing happened. So literally 4 or 5 months ago, I was walking with my girlfriend down behind our house and somebody stopped me. I went, oh, Dan, da-da-da. It was a photographer I'd worked with. I can't remember his name. I've got no idea who he was. Can't remember the photo shoot I did with him, but he was telling me about the photo shoots we'd done.
Yeah.
Can't remember it at all.
No.
Walked away, my girlfriend went, who's that? Couldn't tell you.
Is that because you weren't present in the moment?
Because I was so empty and numb and in such a dark place, that time in my life, it's almost like I disassociated.
Yeah.
So it's like my physical body would be there modelling, but mentally I've checked out.
Yeah.
And there's a massive company that I've done 3 big flagship events for.
Yeah.
I met the owner of that company. She's talking to me. I had to say to her, excuse me, I can't remember your face. And she went, oh, we did 3 shoots together. Yeah. That's when it clicked. I had to say, I'm really sorry. Yeah. But actually, I was in a really dark place when we did that.
Wow.
I can't remember.
And you're very, and just by talking about it now, you're very open about this, aren't you? You know, and so how did this? So did you hit? Would the phrase be rock bottom, and then you took some time out and reset? What was next? So you know, you've got these barriers that you're battling with internally, you know, away from everyone. So what was the phase? What was the next phase?
Yeah. So for me, this is why I always want to try and give people the tools, because all the signs were there that I was struggling. I just didn't realise, because again, 7-8 years ago, no one was talking about this stuff. So especially guys. So I had no idea what was going on. I look back now, all the signs were there. Like everything was screaming at me. And I use the game analogy like Buckaroo. So you only got the horse and you slowly put items on, slowly put items on. And that's what was happening. And then it was one bad breakup, which in the whole grand scheme of my life wasn't really anything. But that led to my whole life.
What, a breakup with a partner?
With a partner, yeah. Ex-partner. And that was it. Like the whole thing exploded. And that's why I just sort of slid down this metaphorical cliff.
So was it almost like that needed to happen for you to build back up?
Yes. This is what I always say. So the bizarre thing about this, and especially for anyone that's struggling with their mental health now, I don't use this phrase lightly, but depression is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay.
Because without hitting rock bottom, I never would have got out of the dangerous cycle. I'd have carried on living my life, just slowly slipping down, slowly slipping down, slowly slipping down, and potentially something worse could have happened. So I'm very grateful that it actually happened how it did, because it meant I hit that rock bottom, and then I could like rebuild back up. And the way that I got out of it, I think it was one of the questions you asked there, was that one day I kind of, and it's bizarre because I remember at the time, every night I'd go to bed and I'd say to myself, it's okay, I'll wake up better tomorrow. It's okay, I'll wake up better tomorrow. And I never did. And then one day I realised I'd isolated myself. The realisation hit that I had no clients, so I couldn't go to work to hide. I'd got myself into all this debt because no one told me about credit cards. So again, we're going to schools, I talk a lot about the credit cards as well, because people don't ever educate people on that. I thought it was free money, not realising what interest rates were, because I wasn't good at maths. And then I realised, because I'd isolated myself, I needed to be around people. So I went back to work at the pub I worked at when I was 18. So bear in mind, I was 28. Everyone saw me as this fitness model with an amazing business. My ego had to take a proper battering to go back to the pub I was working at when I was 18. And everyone in there would be like, oh, and they'd be talking to me, and I'd have, again, wearing a mask, pretending everything was amazing.
So they weren't aware?
They weren't aware. I was under the guise of, I just wanted a bit of extra pocket money. I wasn't. I needed the money to actually survive.
But you was kind of saying to them, oh, I just need
Well, it's fine, like during the modelling works a bit dry minutes, I need a bit of extra money.
Okay.
It wasn't the case, and there was a woman there, and I'll never forget. Her name was Sarah, and she's the person I essentially helped save my life. And she just looked at me and went, "You are not okay." So she was a few years older. So I was 28. She must have been in her 40s. She'd lost her husband a few years prior,
So
and she
she
went.
understood.
She literally saw me, and she saw through the mask,
Yeah.
and she went, "You're not okay," because she couldn't drive. She said, "You're going to drive me home tonight." I was like, "I'm fine." Anyway, got in the car, started driving along. She said, "Right, what's wrong then?"
Yeah.
And
opened
I
up?
didn't even know that anything was wrong. Here's the thing: I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I didn't know something was wrong.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I can't really
Yeah.
describe the feeling. I just wasn't feeling myself, but I never would have said I was depressed. Those words wouldn't come out of my mouth. I'm just feeling a bit low.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I kept saying. "Oh, tomorrow will be a better day." And literally, it's like verbal diarrhea.
Yeah.
I was like, "Bleh." And for the 30-minute drive home, I just told her everything.
Yeah.
Broke down crying, and the weight that was lifted from just sharing it
Yeah.
and having someone who understood and heard what I was saying without judging me and just let me talk. Because when I go into schools, one of the main questions I get asked is, how do you open up to someone? And I say, it's probably not the people that you expect to open up to.
Yeah.
Because normally you'll think, "Oh, I'll go talk to my best mates." But actually, if your best mate's a bit of a gossip,
Yeah.
or if they don't have the space and awareness to hold that information, you're not going to get the response that you want.
No.
So I say it might not actually be your best mate. It might be that friend
Yeah.
that you speak to every now and again,
Yeah.
but you know they're going to understand it. You know they're going to listen to you. You know that it's going to be safe with them, and it's going to hold that space for you to talk. That's the person you want to go and talk to. And it could be a family member. It could be a teacher. It could be whoever.
Yeah.
They're the people you want to talk to, not necessarily your best friend. Because the worst thing you can do, especially as a guy, but same with women as well, is actually open up, and the person can't handle or receive that information and just shoot you down. And they say, "Oh, just man up. Or just get on with it. Stop being pathetic. You're being ridiculous." Because then you won't open up again.
No.
And then you bottle it up, and it will just sit there, and it will get worse and worse.
Right.
It has to be the right person.
Yeah.
And again, even if it is calling a helpline,
Yeah.
because they don't know you, that could also be an option.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the biggest thing I did. And luckily, she could hold that space for me.
Yeah.
And then every week, she'd drive me home and we'd just talk it out.
Yeah, so it
and
was
the
almost
more
like some form of therapy.
absolutely, without realizing, every time I just spoke about it more,
Yeah.
it became easier and easier and easier, and the path became clearer on, first of all, where to go, and second of all, where I actually was.
Yeah.
Because I had to be honest with myself
Yeah.
before I could then move forward.
Yeah.
Because if I was still pretending I was okay when I wasn't, I'd have stayed stuck. So she didn't tell me that I wasn't okay. She pointed out originally, "You're not okay."
Yeah.
But when I was talking, she never told me I wasn't okay. I had to come to the realization of,
Yeah.
wait a minute, like, I'm not okay here.
Yeah.
Because once again, if you tell someone to do something, bit of friction.
Yeah.
But if they come to the realization themselves,
Yeah.
they're a lot more open to being, "Oh, actually, I need some help here." So that's why, again, it's getting the right person to talk to rather than them telling you, "You've got to do this, this. So it's a difficult balance.
And that's helped you to come back and
Yes.
build from there.
Absolutely.
So, again, a real interesting journey into the next phase of your life. Because obviously you had a busy personal battle going on, but you feel it's almost kind of nudged you in a different direction with your career as well. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I still personal training. So once I kind of got myself out of this hole, I didn't want to suddenly change careers because that made no sense. So I kind of got back to doing what I was doing. And as I was sort of going through it, I then became, for lack of a better word, like a life coach for my clients.
Okay.
Because they would ask me, "Oh, I've got these problems."
Yeah.
So because I was figuring myself out and I'd kind of gone this journey of what's gone wrong here. So I was reading books, paying for courses, trying to figure out, first of all, how to get out of debt, and second of all, to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So the more I was learning this stuff, I'd then be teaching it to my clients.
Yeah.
And then
So you're doing the personal training, but actually alongside that, there's a bit of therapy that's
personal development, again, advice, all that stuff, so made life advice.
Yeah.
And then it got to the stage where I realised that people would come to me and they would associate having a six-pack abs, bigger bum, bigger arms, bigger chest, with happiness.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. They wanted to be happy and they associated this physical thing with happiness.
There's way more to it,
Way
right?
more to it. And once they realised that, the transformation almost then became irrelevant. So then I built a team of coaches around me. So I had 6 coaches at one point working for me. They dealt with the transformation side of stuff. And I basically worked on the personal development side of things.
Wow.
And then how I got into schools is a bit of a bizarre one, because one of my clients who I'd taken through this course I'd created had been let down last minute. The person meant to come and do a talk the next day, let down. She said, "Hey, can you come and help me out here?" And I went, "What do you want to talk about?" She said, "Oh, your story and the self-development stuff." I was like, "Right." So I went there, it was in Derby.
And I would imagine you were quite anxious at that
Oh,
point.
very nervous because
Yeah.
I never really, first of all, shared my story with the group of students.
And in front of students, that can be a tough gig,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, especially
Yeah,
year 11s, because the way that it worked was that it was the students that hadn't been able to get placement for work experience. So also they were then stuck in school
Right,
when the rest of
okay.
their mates were out.
Yeah,
But it turned out to be amazing because I went there, I was completely open and honest, and they loved it. And the questions that were asked,
yeah,
and then the lady, Rosie, her name was, worked for LLEP, said, well, actually, I work for this company. Do you want to come do some stuff with us?
Wow.
And that then led into my transition into doing stuff in schools.
yeah.
It's never on my list of things to do.
No,
And,
no.
But for me, and this is the thing as well, when people talk about the public speaking, I never wanted to be a public speaker. I never wanted to do a podcast, like my own podcast.
Yeah,
But when you've got information that you know can help people, I felt like I had to give back.
yeah,
Because it's only through podcasts
Yeah.
and people giving it back themselves that
Yeah.
I was able to receive this information.
yeah,
So that's why I'm so passionate about going to schools,
yeah,
to give the students the information that I wish that I'd had,
yeah,
so that they don't have to hit that rock bottom that I did.
yeah. That's really, really powerful. So you've gone from personal training to a team of personal trainers, but then you've kind of developed this mindset and support system.
Yep.
Which then kind of took you into working in a school.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you've gone schools, and am I right in saying that you work in the corporate world as well
Yes.
now? And what's the name of your business?
Yep. So I basically then stopped doing personal training altogether.
So you don't do that at
Don't
all
do
now?
it at all.
I'm guessing you still train, you're looking like you're in
yes,
shape?
yes. I've got 3 or 4 clients that have been with me for years, so I still look after them.
Yeah.
Fine. But it's all the mindset stuff now. So
Yeah.
I just realised that my heart really wasn't in it. So that's another thing when it comes to careers and stuff. There'd be something that's calling you, that's saying your
Yeah.
heart's not in it. My heart wasn't in it, so I left that space and realised, well, what really gets me out of bed in the morning?
Yeah.
And it's helping people. So now it's the whole mindset and high performance coaching. So we're
Yeah.
doing that full time now for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of stuff in the corporate world.
Yeah.
I do a lot of big speaking gigs.
Yeah.
I've worked with Audi nationwide, Vets for Pets. I've got a big talk next week at CDW in London. I've done some big awards where I've been the keynote speaker and stuff. Because again, everyone needs to hear this information.
Yeah. And when you say this information, do you talk about your own journey and the skills that other people might be able to take away from that talk? Is that the kind of
So
rationale?
all depends. So obviously when I'm working with corporations and
Yeah.
big companies, it's, well, what do they need?
Yeah.
So I've got my flagship thing, which is the 5 things I wish I knew sooner, which
Yeah.
basically is the 5 key things that really help me get unstuck.
Yeah.
Now, in that situation, I need to share my story.
Yeah.
However, I can also do stuff on resilience.
Yeah.
People don't really need to hear my story about resilience in the
No.
corporate world. They just need to know, how can you help my team
Yeah,
with
got
resilience
ya.
and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's all case dependent.
Yeah.
So if the company and organisation wants me to talk about the mental health side of stuff
Yeah.
specifically, I'll share my
So
story.
it's quite bespoke to where you work.
It has to be bespoke
Brilliant.
because for
Yeah.
me, with the organisations, the same with the schools.
Yeah.
When I'm working with the schools, it's the career lead. Hey, what do your students struggle with?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because yes,
yeah.
I've got the 5 things I wish I knew sooner,
Yeah.
but there's hundreds of things I know.
Yeah.
So if there's something that needs to be said, maybe they're struggling more with social media, or maybe
Yeah.
they're struggling more with bullying, or maybe whatever it is,
Yeah.
cool, I can whip a piece of that in there as well.
Yeah.
So I can bespoke it,
Yeah.
but I've got my core principles.
Yeah.
It's just then tailoring it to what the audience needs.
Brilliant.
And that's both in the corporate world and then also when I'm working
Brilliant.
with students.
And if we go back to your 16-year-old self,
Yes.
I'm guessing in terms of from A to B, wow, it's been some journey.
Yeah.
Not just a career, but also the battle you was having behind the scenes that actually led to you tweaking your career path as well.
Yes, absolutely. So for me, I didn't ever have a career path.
No.
I basically fell into things. And this is
Yeah.
what I was saying, what I think we're saying this off air, is that for me, if you don't take charge of your life,
Yeah.
somebody else will. So the analogy that I use is that we're all boats in the sea of life.
Okay.
Just like a boat,
Yeah.
if a boat doesn't have a sense of direction, it just sits there, the sea of life will move where it wants to move it.
Yeah.
Same with us. If we don't choose where we want to go, what direction we want to go, I'm not saying you've got to have an exact location, but I kind of want my life to sort of look like this. If you don't decide that, then somebody else will. And like some of my clients that I work with on a one-to-one basis, they're 40, 50, 60 years old, and they've woken up one day and realised they're in the career they never wanted to be in.
Yeah.
They're living a life they never wanted.
Yeah.
It's all because no one ever told them, hey, what is it that you actually want to do?
Yeah.
And I feel like nowadays there's so much pressure put on young people. They've got to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't.
No.
But right now, with the information you've got, roughly what do you kind of
Yeah.
like want your life to look
Yes.
like? Because once you go there, maybe you get halfway through and you realise, actually, do you know what? This isn't my passion, but this is.
You know, that's really interesting you say that, because obviously I do a lot of one-to-one careers guidance with students from all over Leicester and Leicestershire, and I do feel there is a bit of panic with children. I should know what I want to do right now. And you know, that's not always the case, is it? You know, it's okay, you know, just, you know, have a think about what you enjoy, where that may take you, and you know, just keep taking those baby steps forward, but don't neglect what you spoke about in terms of kind of, you know, showing your skills outside of education as well. So, you know, reliability, timekeeping, resilience, dedication, enthusiasm, because ultimately, you know, you just don't know who you might come across and what opportunity that might lead to. And, you know, there's that talk around happenstance as well, isn't it, you know, in the careers world. You know, it's really powerful.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm really, really grateful that you've come on today, not just to talk about your career's journey, but how honest you've been about your, you know, your background. Because I appreciate, you know, it's a very deep conversation. Daniel, if you don't mind, I'd just like to kind of like round off now, really, in terms of, and I'm putting you on the spot, so I do apologise. If I was to say to you, could you give us, or the listeners, 3 tips, particularly our student listeners, 3 tips around, you know, careers when let's say they're perhaps in their GCSE years, year 10, year 11, and I know we've kind of just touched upon, you know, it's okay if you don't know exactly what direction you want to go in, but if you could give me kind of like, or the viewers, 3 tips, you know, that they may benefit from.
First of all, don't sweat the small stuff. Like, don't focus so much on the smaller details of things. Just look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, right now in the GCSE year, you've got to focus on your GCSEs. Like, there's all the little things that's going on, the noises. Don't worry about the noises. Just focus on the big thing. The big thing is your GCSEs. And I had one student come to me last week, and he said, how do I balance my friendships, my relationship with my girlfriend, my parents, and my GCSEs? And I said, well, I'm guessing your parents is linked to the GCSEs. And he went, yes. I said, okay. I said, and again, this goes for all listeners, I'm going to be popular to say this, but the friends that you've got now are probably not going to be your friends when you're in your 20s and 30s. Some may be, but most of them won't. And I turned around and said, and again, stereotyping here, but I said, I bet your girlfriend studies a lot. And he went, yeah. So my advice with you is go and see your girlfriend, but make the first hour or so studying. Because she gets to study, you get to study with someone that knows how to study, and then you're making your parents happy, and you're also focusing. I said, if your friends can't understand that, then maybe they're not the people that maybe want to associate with.
Yeah, because we often say surround yourself with people that want the best for you.
Exactly, and what's going to happen is, like, maybe your friends are saying it's not cool to study, but actually behind the scenes they are studying.
Of course.
So they're making you seem like you're being weird and a loser for studying, but actually they're doing it behind the scenes. So my advice is actually go and spend time with your girlfriend, but use that time to study, especially with someone that may know how to study. So that's the main thing you want to focus on in that GCSE year. So don't sweat the small stuff. The big stuff is just focus on your GCSEs. Because as we said, you don't have to be redoing them when you're in your 30s.
Absolutely not.
That's number one. Number 2, look after your mental health. Like, mental health comes above everything. If you are struggling and you are feeling overwhelmed, reach out for help. Whether it's from your parents, whether it's from your careers advice at school, whether it's from your teacher,
responsible in school,
whoever it is, just say, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. But you don't got to ask yourself, why are you feeling overwhelmed? What is it you're overwhelmed about? Is it because you're making no time to study? Is it because you're focusing on what your life's going to look like in 30 years? Be a bit more specific. Rather than saying you're feeling overwhelmed, ask yourself the question, what are you overwhelmed about? Because no one knows you better than you know yourself. So you know the answer, just ask. And the third thing is, enjoy life, enjoy the journey. Because, listen, you're going to be in your 20s and 30s soon. And you're going to have a mortgage, bills, big responsibilities. So I know right now it may seem like it's crazy, and again, there's a lot of pressure. But actually, there's not much pressure as what's going to be coming. So enjoy the journey. Don't rush this process. Enjoy spending time with your mates. Enjoy the fact that you get this sort of structured time. Enjoy the fact you're going to have your evenings to yourself and all this sort of stuff. And realise actually, going through your exams, and I know we're speaking from the other side, it's nowhere near as bad as you think. And if it doesn't go the way that it goes, I promise you it's not the end of the world.
That is really powerful. And how you thought of those off the cuff, I do not know.
I've got no idea either. I told you we said before. But
no, but really powerful, really meaningful. So I'm going to draw a close there, Daniel. Thank you so much again for coming on. Can you just remind us before we head off what your organisation's called and how people can kind of reach out to you? Do you want to talk around and let them know?
So my Instagram is the Prime Life Project. So again, I do a lot of stuff in schools, corporations. If anyone's listening to this that is from the careers, like the adult world, my LinkedIn is Daniel James, and my DMs are always open. So if anything that I've said resonates with you, feel free to drop me a message. I'm more than happily help you myself. If I don't have an answer, I know someone that can help you. So yes, if you need to use me as that first point of call to get help, then please use me, and I'll happily put you in the right direction.
Daniel, thank you again. I'm going to draw a close there, guys. Thank you for listening. Just a reminder, I'm Lee from MyPath. I work with Jamie and co. I'm hoping that from this, you've taken away a number of key messages. But remember, the path isn't always linear. It can take quite a few zigzags along the way to get to your destination, and that is okay. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.